Ghosts are known to be seen in places that were once important to them in life. Ghosts might be responsible for many strange occurrences in our lives. Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, ghost stories can send shivers down your spine. In this list, we bring you top 10 bone-chilling female ghost stories that you probably should read before bed. 10. The Blue Lady. If you've ever stumbled upon the Moss Beach Distillery in California, you must have heard of the ghost of the Blue Lady. Legend says that back in 1920s, a young beautiful woman crossed paths with a piano player at the Moss Beach Distillery. They fell in love with each other and hid the affair from the woman's husband. One day while walking on the beach, they were caught together and confronted by the woman's husband. A fight started between the piano player and the husband, and the piano player accidentally stabbed the woman, which resulted in her death. Many bizarre occurrences have been happening at the distillery, such as receiving mysterious phone calls from no one, locked doors, and sightings of a lady dressed in blue. La Planchada is a well-known ghost story in Mexico. The legend states that in the 1930s, a nurse who went by the name of Eulalia worked in Hospital Juarez in Mexico City. She was known to wear clean and ironed uniforms, hence the name La Planchada, which translates to Ironed Lady. She fell in love with a handsome doctor who recently joined the hospital's staff. As a result, they got engaged shortly after. The doctor had to attend a seminar one day, and he didn't return from the trip. Eulalia learned later that he wedded another woman whom he had met there. Eulalia's sadness turned to depression, which led to the neglecting and death of one of her patients. The nurse became ill herself from the guilt and died in the hospital. Witnesses have stated that they have seen her ghost walking around the hospital. Others have claimed that during the stay at the emergency room, a nurse in a clean, crisp uniform would appear and heal them. 8. The Headless Nun. In the 1800s in New Brunswick, a nun known by the name Sister Mary Inconnu was beheaded. There are many legends and tales about her death, and it's not certain that it's an older urban legend or a true story. There are two main stories about who beheaded Sister Mary, one of which is by a madman who killed nuns on a rampage. He killed Sister Mary and hid her head in the woods. The ghost of the Headless Nun appears around the town of Miramichi, looking around the area for her lost head. 7. The Ghost of Anne Boleyn. The ghost of Anne Boleyn is one of the most famous ghosts in Britain. Anne Boleyn was the second wife of Henry VIII. He married her so she could birth a male heir. When the newborn heir turned out to be a girl, Henry VIII was disappointed and married another woman, Jane Seymour. Anne got pregnant once more shortly after, but her child was stillborn. Wanting to get rid of Anne once and for all, Henry charged her with treason. She was beheaded at the Tower of London by a skilled executioner. There have been sightings of the ghost of Anne Boleyn at the Tower of London where she was beheaded. She had also been seen walking throughout the church. 6. Agnes Sampson. Witch hunt was a huge thing in the Scottish town of Humby, back in the 1500s. Thousands of men and women were accused of witchcraft and ordered to be killed. One of them was Agnes Sampson. Sampson was an old woman, and was considered to have healing powers. She was accused of witchcraft, and was held in an old chapel. Also, she was tortured by a device called a witch's bridle before she confessed to her crimes. She was garroted and burned at the stake. Today, the naked ghost of Agnes Sampson is said to roam Holyrood Palace. Considered to be one of the most famous haunting in England, the Brown Lady of Rainham Hall is a ghost that haunts Rainham Hall. The ghost of the Brown Lady was captured on camera before, and it's presented as an actual photographic proof that ghosts exist. The ghost of the Brown Lady was a woman called Lady Dorothy. She fell in love with Charles Townshend, but the marriage was forbidden by her father. Eventually, after the death of Charles' wife, Lady Dorothy, and he got married. However, he found out about her infidelity with Lord Wharton whilst waiting to get married to Charles and locked her in a room until her death. Over the next 2 centuries, there have been sightings of the ghost of a lady wearing a brown satin dress with disheveled hair and pale face and eye gouged out. 4. Red Lady of Huntingdon College. The Red Lady of Huntingdon College, allegedly called Martha, was a lonely girl who had trouble fitting in. People mistook her shyness for disdain due to her father's wealth. Martha stayed in an all-girls dormitory. Her first roommate found it unbearable to stay with Martha in the same room and asked to move out to another room. After the first roommate moving out, many girls moved in and also found it impossible to live in the same room as Martha. The president of the dormitory, who was known to be friendly and easygoing, decided to move in with Martha at last. After trying to be friends with her but all her efforts were futile, the president of the dormitory decided to move out. When Martha found out, she screamed at her that she thought she was really her friend, and that she would regret moving out for the rest of her life. Days later, one of her former roommates found her dead body laying on her red spreadsheet. Martha had committed suicide by slashing her wrists. Students at the university have claimed to have seen red glow coming from underneath the door and passing through the walls and doors. 3. Slag Pile Annie. Annie was a woman who worked at a steel mill back in the 1900s in Pennsylvania. One day while doing her job, she fell into the slag and was killed. During a night shift, other workers found a woman working along them. They warned her to be careful while working, to which she had responded with, "I can't die, and I'm already gone." Then she disappeared. It's said that her ghost still haunts the steel mill to this day, too. The Greenbrier ghost. In 1897, Elvazona Heastershoe passed away suddenly. Her death was suspicious from the start. Her husband, named Erasmus Edward Stribling Troutshue, had dressed their body of his deceased wife and had wrapped a scarf around her neck, claiming that she could rest easier. The ghost of Zona appeared over the course of fortnight to her mother, Mary Jane, and told her the details of her abusive relationship with her husband and that he was her murderer. Mary Jane requested a second autopsy and they found out that her windpipe was crushed and she was indeed murdered by her husband. 1. Resurrection Mary. The story of Resurrection Mary began when Mary spent an evening with her boyfriend at the Willowbrook Ballroom in Illinois. After an argument between the two, she stormed out. While walking to her house, she was struck by a hit-and-run driver and was left bleeding to death. Her parents buried her in Resurrection Cemetery, dressed in a white dress and matching dancing shoes. Since her death, there have been many sightings of her appearing in nightclubs and lounges and disappearing.